Hey everyone, Professor Caldwell here. This is going to be our syllabus video. So if you don't have that pulled up, go to D2L and pull that up. Pause this, do what you need to do. Get that. We're going to go line by line through it. My apologies, the phone's kind of at a funky angle, but I got to read the syllabus here, so bear with me on that. And we're literally going to go line through line and explain kind of how the course works. So one thing you'll need to know is everything I do is going to communicate with you through the announcements page. So that should be your starting page in D2L. But we'll talk much more about that as we go. So this is DAAC 2341, Counseling of Substance Use Disorders, Fall 2025. I'm your instructor. There's my credentials. I've already kind of gone over that in the welcome video. Here's my cell number and here's my email address. I want you to always start with an email, and I'll talk much more about that in our communication section of the syllabus. But I don't keep traditional office hours. This is an online course. I have a private counseling practice and do intervention work all over the place. So yeah, we'll talk more about how that looks here. Professor Glenn Killian is our Human Services Program Director. So we'll sure to get you his information if you need it. This course is 3 credit hours. You could read the descriptions. Well, I'll just read this. It says, an advanced examination of knowledge, skills, attitudes. We call those the KSAs. That's what you're going to be tested on for your license. Techniques, confidentiality, and ethical guidelines applied in counseling, treatment, prevention, and recovery of substance use disorders. We're going to talk about all of that in some form or fashion. As I explained in the welcome video, I'm going to challenge you on your thinking about what recovery is or isn't for those that may or may not be involved in a recovery program. I'm going to challenge you on things like the language we use. My hope is we start to shift from, for those that are people of recovery, we hope to shift from that to clinical thinking, because there's a difference. And so we'll learn some of all that, right? And here's our required text. You will use this book. I know there's nothing worse than, or not many things worse than buying a book and not using it. I've had that happen multiple times in my schooling. What is this, 1950? Anyways, the book, we're going to use it, right? So be sure to get that. And we are an online course, so you are expected to attend and log in at multiple times a week. There's no set time you have to log in, but you need to log in multiple times because we do keep track of that, how often you spend in the course, how long you're logged in for, that kind of thing. And as you see, there's some highlighted areas here. These are the important things, right? Students are responsible for checking your student email and your announcements regularly in D2L, because I will communicate with you there. If something changes, I'm not emailing everybody. I'm going to put it on an announcement. Bonus points, which I'll talk about later when we get to the assignments. I put those up randomly throughout the semester, and so a lot of times I'll put them up on a random Wednesday and say, you have till the end of the day tomorrow for these to count. So, look for things like that. If anything changes, like I said, if there's any weather issues, a couple of years ago we had a storm where knocked out some power for some folks. Anyways, all that would be done through the announcements. So I can't stress that enough. I'm gonna say this throughout the syllabus is your responsibility to check these multiple times a week. Because I'll email you if I don't for example, if you turn a paper in the wrong format, and I will generally email you and say, hey, I need this turned in. If you don't have it turned in by a reasonable date because you didn't check your email, you won't get credit for that. So I just need you to really hone in on check your emails and announcements daily, or as often as you can. Maybe not daily, but as often as you can. That said, everything we do in this course is designed to help you build a foundation to be an LCDC. So you say, how is checking my announcements or my email every day or every other day or whatever it is, multiple times a week, help me be a better LCDC? One, it's discipline, and it takes discipline to do this job because there's lots of documentation, there's lots of rules and regulations, there's lots of things we have to be aware of. And it takes discipline to stay on top of all that. And it's our responsibility to do that because we have people counting on us. So, that said, I won't respond to any school-related issues on any social media. And then we have assignments here. And our assignments look like this. You have some assigned readings. I'm sorry, I have a dog. You're probably going to hear him bark throughout this thing occasionally. Actually, I have 4 of them, so there's that. That said, you're going to have some readings that you need to stay on top of. You have quizzes. There's a total of 4 of them. There are no final exams or midterm exams in this course. We're not here to pass tests, right? We're here to learn information and learn to build a foundation to be a clinician. So, but there are 4 quizzes, and then there's a number of discussion boards. I believe there's 8 total. And you're going to need to follow this format. Everyone except for the introduction DB, you'll follow this format of we're going to write an APA writing. And I'm going to tell you there's another video on that. We're going to talk about that in a second. But every original post should be a minimum of 200 and a maximum of 250 words. And you have to use 2 resources. Your textbook should be one of them. So you really need to use one more scholarly resource. And we'll talk about much more of that, what that looks like. Right now, I'm not going to get into all of that, but they do require citations in text and at the end of the writing. That's how you write an APA. That's how we write in this profession. And I'll tell you, well, we'll get into that in a little while. I'll do another video and you can talk more about that. But how is that helpful for being an LCDC? Well, word count matters, right? When I was in graduate school, we have to do 700,000 word discussion boards. But I want us to be concise in our thinking and what we're saying. And if we can say something in 200 words versus 1,000 words, we're probably going to keep that client more engaged. So this is a good practice for that. And then you'll reply to 2 of your peers with 100 to 150 words in one scholarly resource. And again, your textbook absolutely is a scholarly resource. So we'll talk much more about that as it comes. Your original post will be due on Thursday nights, by the end of the day Thursday, and your follow-ups will be due by Saturday. That way, Sunday, if somebody wants to engage in the conversation, they can. And I'll tell you, it sounds like a lot, but every semester, the thing students give me the feedback on is they loved learning from each other, right? So keep that in mind. I probably won't comment on every DB. I will certainly read them, I assure you. But I will probably just do a video. That's how I typically do it, and kind of take some notes throughout and do that route. Now your papers, I'll comment on every one of your papers line by line. So speaking of that, there's papers, there's 4 of them, 2 to 3 pages in length each one. And they are, except for the last one. The last one's just a reflection paper, super easy, no resources, but we're way ahead of that right now. So these will all be written in APA writing. There's no abstract, there will be a title page. APA is simply Times New Roman font, 12 point, double spaced. All your work needs to be in that. You will lose points for that because that's super easy to do. And if you don't do it, if you don't know how, you can reach out to me. I have a whole nother video explaining it, but you can reach out to me and I'll walk you through it. You can go to the Writing Center or contact the Writing Center. There's lots of resources to help you with this. It's not as hard as it might sound, but just changing a font's not hard at all. So if you don't know, I'm happy to help you, but that's the stuff you will lose points for. So keep that in mind. But you have to attend 3 outside meetings. And on the first one, here's just a couple of noted places here, but you have other options, and they're located in our LCDC resources tab in D2L, which I'm going to go over D2L at the end of the syllabus video a little bit. You could have a choice of NA or AA, Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous. You can also go to CA, Cocaine Anonymous. You can go to Al-Anon or ACA, Adult Children of Alcoholics. The second paper will be a Smart Recovery paper. The third, you'll have a choice of Refuge Recovery, Recovery Dharma, or Celebrate Recovery. And I'll explain to you what all those programs are long ahead of time. And so, yeah, don't worry about that. It's not as bad as it sounds. And if you're a member of one of these groups, I'm going to ask you to go to a new meeting. The idea is that you have a new experience. Look, I've been to 1 million meetings. I could write a paper on a meeting with my eyes closed. That's not what this assignment's for. This assignment is we're going to be asking clients to have new experiences, even those that are familiar with these programs already, and we're going to be asking them to have a new experience. So if you're a member of NA, go to AA. If you're a member of AA, go to ACA. If you're a member of Al-Anon, go to AA. Like I'm going to really encourage that, and really, we'll talk much more about that because I'm kind of a stickler for that. If I'm an AA member, for example, don't write a paper on AA. Like that's not what this purpose is. Everything we do in here, again, is designed to help you help your client. I've got a lot of experience here with this, and I really think this is probably the best value putting this practice. And I'm going to ask you in these things is, sorry, I started to say the best value of this class, but I'm going to ask you to do 3 things in these meetings. Be a student, be a professional, and be a client. I'm going to ask you to wear all 3 of those hats in this perspective. And what a cool experience that is to be able to do that, right? So the last one is just a personal reflection paper, super simple. It's a give me assignment on the way out. I want to note here is and highlighted here is, don't give me an explanation of these programs, the histories. I know all that. It's not what I want. I don't want you to take up space writing about AA was made in the 1930s, NA in the 50s. I know all that. I want you to write about your experience in the meeting, finding the meeting, what was their processes? How do you think it's valuable for clients? Did you find any value in it? What are the pitfalls potentially that you could see from this for a client? That's the purpose of these meetings. And again, we'll talk much more about that. I do put out extra credit assignments. I put those out at the halfway point. I've got as many as you want to do. So if you're not a good quiz taker, there's only 4. I do lots of bonus points randomly, at least 4, 5, 6 times a semester. I also do extra credit assignments. So what you got to know about extra credit is you can't just may have a 0 and then do an extra credit assignment. That's not how they work. You have to you can bring up a grade, but you can't make up a 0 with it. So keep that in mind. Turn your work in, is all I'm saying. That said, I'm a pretty easy grader overall. Like, I'll be honest with you. Again, we're here to gain experience as being clinicians. But there are certain things we have to follow. APA is one, because that's how we write in this profession. Word counts, those kinds of things, as I was explaining, have value. So here's your rubric. This is, if you want to know the grade you get, this is where you'll go. Before you send me an email going, hey, Professor Caldwell, why did I get an 80 here? Well, I have less than 2 pages, and as it's highlighted here, anything less than below, you'll lose 20 points immediately. So this is how you'll be graded. This is how you'll know what needs to be in there. So here's your DB. I mean, literally, the word counts 5 points. The appropriate use of APA, 5 points. Response to peers, 15 points. If you only respond to 1 peer, you get no points for that. If you respond to 2, you get, just do the work and you'll get all the points, I assure you. And again, we'll talk much more about that. I know this is all new. This is just kind of an overview. And there's a syllabus quiz. So you'll have this. It's not it's super easy. It's not. I just need to know you have this basic information, because the questions in that quiz are the same things I get every semester. I didn't know I needed 760 points to pass this course. That's what you need. So here's your grading system. Note, you have to have a C- or above to pass this course. You can technically get a D or an F, but you have to have a C- or above, which is 760 points. So we'll keep our point totals up, super easy. All the assignments are worth a certain amount of points. Papers are worth 100 points each. DBs are worth 50 points, and quizzes are worth 50 points. There's your 1,000 points. You need 760 to pass this class. And again, we'll go over all of that. This is just an overview of the course, right? I can make changes along the way, and if I do, as I stated earlier, I will put an announcement out in plenty of time. Like, nobody will be taken by surprise unless you don't check your email. Your announcements. Late policy. All work is due end of day Sunday, so midnight basically, except for the DB post. Every one of those, with the exception of week 1, are due Thursday nights with your response to your peers on Saturdays. It's your responsibility to be aware of due dates and ensure I receive your work, not mine. I can't do it for you, right? So that's on you. Quizzes and discussion boards will not be accepted late. FYI, that's a question on your syllabus quiz. I think they will not be accepted late. Papers, I will take anytime, but you lose half points right away for half credit. I will grade them as regular. So if you were going to get an 80, that would be a 40, right? Because it'll start at a 50 and I grade the same. So just turn your work in and it'll be fine. You got plenty of time. This course repeats itself, and I'll go over that when we get to the calendar part. But again, quizzes and DBs are not accepted late. DBs, because by very nature, they're a discussion board. You're discussing with your peers, right? So if you just do the work and there's no discussion, that's not a discussion, right? That's an assignment. And so you have to be able to do those on time. Formatting of and submission of assignments, everything will be submitted through D2L. And I know I shouldn't have to say this, but it seems like every semester I do. We don't write with emojis. We don't write in language of text. We don't put LOL. We don't do any of those things. This is an academic setting, and we expect academic work, right? Appropriate academic work on a college level, right? So correct spelling, proper grammar, all that's expected. That should go without saying, but here we are. Unless otherwise noted, all your papers should include a APA 7 title page, which there's a whole video for this, so don't panic if you don't know what that is. It's super easy. I've put a student example paper. All you got to do is copy and paste it and replace it with your information. I'm cool with that. Let's not reinvent the wheel here. The idea is to know how to do it, know what information needs to be in there, and know how we write in this industry. And if for those that plan on going on with your education to a 4-year university, everything you do in this profession is gonna be in APA, right? And the reason I do this is when I got to grad school, I was behind. Nobody taught me APA, so I'm doing you a solid whether you think so or not. Trust me. So that said, Times New Roman, 12-point font, 1-inch margins, and written in third person. Page count required for each assignment does not include the reference page or the title page. You got to have references in your text and at the end of your text. And again, the APA video will literally, I'll give example after example and walk you through it. So, so that's that. No DBs need title pages or reference pages. You'll see how you do that. You just do that in D2L. No assignments will be accepted through email unless you and I have talked about that, like there's some extenuating circumstance. Everything needs to go through D2L, and it should be turned in by the due date. That's at the end of the day. We have a writing center. You can read about our academic standards of conduct. If you have any problems with D2L, here's a number. Incomplete grades, withdraw from course. It's your responsibility to be aware how all those things work. There is in D2L, which I'll go over. I put the academic calendar, which gives you the dates for these things, but that's your responsibility, not mine, to keep up with. Here's the equal opportunity statement, the ADA statement for those that need those services. There's how you do it. There will be a course evaluation at the end of the semester. This is where we ask you to evaluate your thoughts on the course. Here's some additional resources. There's some human services advisors, text announcements, a website for some needs, on-campus counselor or case manager. I would encourage all of you to take advantage of that. And so you can read through those things again as you need, but here is our class. And so some of these things in D2L don't get assigned due dates like the DBs. And here's why. Because if one part of it's due Thursday, the second part of it's due Saturday, putting a date on that becomes a challenge. So it won't show up on your calendar. Always, always, always follow this calendar. this is accurate. This is the most accurate thing. Here is your calendar at the end of this syllabus. So if you have any questions about what's showing up in D2L or not, come to your calendar. You can always email me, but start with your syllabus. Because I'll tell you, if there's a problem that you email me about that can be handled in the syllabus, my response to you is probably going to be, well, did you check your syllabus? Because I know it's in there, right? So start with your syllabus. This answers most of these questions. But follow this calendar and you'll see, looking here, that this course, once you get the first 4 weeks down, it repeats itself every 4 weeks. So you'll have a DB, a quiz, a DB, and a paper. It will repeat. Quiz, DB, paper, quiz, easy for me to say. Quiz, DB, quiz, DB, paper. DB, quiz, DB, paper, as you'll see. So week 1, simple introduction, right? Go back through the syllabus, complete the syllabus quiz. You won't be able to move on if you don't complete the syllabus quiz, FYI. And then introduce yourself in a discussion board. There's a little prompt there. It says, hey, tell us some fun facts, or why you want to be an LCDC, all those things. Just don't answer the questions one at a time. Like that, that's not what those are there for. They're just a guide. Like, give me a free flow thought of ideas, right? Hey, I'm Dan, I'm 53. I want to be an LCDC because, I got sober, it changed my life, and I want to help others. I have that passion. Fun fact about me, I love dogs. I've lived in Alaska. That kind of thing, right? There's not really a word count on this first introduction DB where you don't really have to follow those guidelines here. And I'll talk more about that as we go through the week. But starting in week 3 is your first DB that you have to follow these guidelines. And then again, there'll be several videos between now and then. The next week is we read chapter 1, quiz 1. Week 3, DB, right? Week 4, our NA or AA paper. Now and then it starts over. So you went DB, quiz, DB, paper. Week 5, our DB after our papers is just a summary of the paper. So super easy week. I did that on purpose, right? 1 to not overwhelm anybody, but 2 is the idea is that you write your paper and share it with me, and I give you feedback individually. And then the summary is you share your experience with your class, right? And so that's the reason. So every time there's a paper, the following week's DB is just a summary of your paper. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You use the same resources. You just don't copy and paste your paper. You summarize. But I'll talk much more about that as we get down the line. But it just simply repeats itself. DB, quiz, DB, paper. So yeah, that's how this goes throughout, right? There's a lot of great information in this course to help build your foundation as LCDCs. So it looks like August 30th through September 1st is Labor Day holiday, and November 26th through 30th is the Thanksgiving holiday. And we're an online course, so I didn't break that up in the weeks, but our work's still due when it's due, so look at that. Just pay attention to these due dates. So yeah, that's our syllabus. I wanted to go over a couple things in D2L. So when you open D2L up, you should be able to see your announcements, and that's where, again, that's where you found this video. So that's going to be the first thing you see, is my hope. But when you go to the top tab, you click content, right? And let me see if I can look at this in a student view. Sorry, I should have already had this done. View as observer. All right, here we go. So yes, so you see course material. This is where we go. We're going to click that, see what that says. No, that's not what we need. Okay, let me back up a second. Let me get out of this because this is just confusing me now. So you're going to see course activities. That's assignments, attendance, class progress. So content is what you're looking for. You click on content, and here's where everything's going to be, right? This is where you'll turn your work in. This is where you'll find the week's work. This is where you have lots of resources. So let's just start here with all of our content. So right away, you have the 2025-26 calendar, the academic calendar that'll give you your grades. Then you have your syllabus that we just went over. Then you have an APA tab. This is where you'll see an APA 7 writing example paper. You'll also see a student example from Lone Star. The paper's phenomenal. That's why I used it. It'll show you exactly what the expectations are. Title page, reference page, how to cite. And then I have several other things that I've cited and showed you how to do it with the APA DB and APA examples. Then I have this last section is citation of our textbook, the AA Big Book, the AA 12 and 12, and the DSM. Just some helpful citations you may need across throughout the semester. Then you have an LCDC resources tab. I put this together to give you some things you need to know. Health and Human Services Commission. This is our rules and regulations are here. You need to know about this website. This is where you're going to find those things. Let's see, I've lost my... All right, let me go back here. Sorry about that, guys. Then you have IC and RC. This is where we register. This is part of where we register to take our exam. You need to be familiar with what IC and RC is. International Certification and Reciprocity Consortium. That's a mouthful there. And again, we'll talk much more about what these things actually are and why they are and how they're important to us as LCDCs. Then you have SAMHSA, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Administration link. You have a NAAC, the National Association of Alcoholism and Drug Abuse Counselors, TAP, the Texas Association of Addiction Professionals, National Suicide Prevention Line. Then you have a link for AA, for Al-Anon, for ACA, Narcotics Anonymous, all the things that I mentioned earlier. They're all links right here. So this is where you'll find meetings. I don't care if you go online or in person, but again, we'll talk much more about that as we get started. Then you'll click week 1, and here we are, right? It gives you what you need to know. Here's your DB, here's your syllabus quiz. You'll click on that, and you'll turn these in. And that's how this goes. This is where you'll come every week, right? You'll go to, it's labeled week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. This is how all of these go. So, yeah, guys, this is how it is on D2L and your syllabus. So I'm going to wrap this up. It's taken enough of your time, but I hope this shed some light on some of these assignments. And this is just the beginning. Again, every week I'll do videos talking about this last week's work versus this upcoming week's assignments as well. So I look forward to reading your introductions, and yeah, we'll talk soon.